Oh, you're the well, we can't get so
Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks a lot for turning up. Without further ado, Nick Bailey from Apexselling.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As John said, my name is Nick Bailey, and I run a company out of Congleton called Apexselling. The purpose of that business is to help people to find, develop and close high-value complex deals. And this morning I'm going to talk to you about the importance of sales processes and sales professionalism as it's linked to increasing profitability in deals. A lot of organisations are people by entrepreneurs. Some have sales background in their careers, some don't. But very often I find that people don't have an appreciation of how important sales processes are in order to A, find business, develop it and close it, or close it profitably. So that's the purpose of my presentation this morning. As it says up there, optimise and explore profitability, we're not obviously going to do a sales training course in 40 minutes, so I'm going to focus on one specific aspect of the sales process, which is called qualification, and try and, if you like, articulate how important that is for you as entrepreneurs and business people. So, who am I, and why should you bother listening this morning? Well, actually I was born in Crewe a long time ago, so I'm born, Crewe, born and bred and educated, and in fact, I said to John, the last time I was in here was 35 years ago, because in fact I was courting a girl who lives about 200 yards away on Alton Avenue, who I haven't seen since. But I met a girl through my work with, I started off with BT as an engineer, moved to Stoke-on-Trent, met a Stoke girl, ended up going to live near her parents in Stoke, as you do. Do you have any choice, guys? No, you don't have much choice in these things, do you? But then came down out of the middle and went to live in Congleton, where I am now, and where I've got my business based. After spending that 10 years in that technical career, very quickly I decided to get into what was the computer industry, and in the mid-80s I actually joined what is now known as SG World around the corner. I was asked to join that company. It was known as Safeguard Business Systems now, and I went there as a sales manager and was selling the IBM PC to help go through their franchise members to move them from hard copy account keeping systems to computerised account keeping systems. And that went extremely well to the point where I won an IBM PC Dealer Award for the UK, got sent to watch the Super Bowl in the States and all kinds of stuff. So I leveraged that to go and work for Hewlett-Packard. So I did a traditional mini-computer, PC-based career in Hewlett-Packard in the late 80s. And then without taking you through all of this, went through a classic career of hardware, systems integration, software, ultimately ended up as a sales director in Northwest Europe for a F.I.C.K.L.E 100 PLC called Invensys. So Invensys is still a F.I.C.K.L.E 100 PLC. But decided a few years ago to set up my own business and launched this time last year Apexselling. I wrote a book, Customers Are Fickle, which is attracting 5-star reviews on Amazon at the moment. The basis of the book and the basis of my training is the acronym F.I.C.K.L.E. What does F.I.C.K.L.E mean? Well, it means how do you find clients, how do you investigate their needs in terms of understanding how your solution might exactly meet the client's requirements. How do you close business? Because that's very often the difficulty is that you can get so far with a deal, but then all of a sudden it keeps going out and out and out and out. And you don't know what's going on. Why isn't this thing coming in? Why isn't it closing? And very often it's because you don't understand the client's buying process and where this thing is stuck inside the client. If you do manage to close the business and you're starting to grow some more business, how do you keep that client happy? How do you get more business? Okay, keeping the client. If you've got good clients and they are happy with you, you should be leveraging that in terms of case studies and references. So how do you leverage those relationships to get more business? And then finally, E for expanding. How do you expand your own client base? Because you might start off in one part of the company with products and services you sell, but there's an opportunity to expand that into other parts of the business. So that's what Customers on F.I.C.K.L.E is about. Let's look at the definition of a high-value complex deal. Typical values range from 50k up to several million. Personally, I've sold deals from 5k to 50 million. Large IT outsourcing deals, multi-year contracts, 10-year contracts. So I do know what I'm talking about in this sphere. I have personal experience as well as the academics to go with it. Interestingly, I've been helping a lot of people who don't necessarily have businesses that are selling deals at 50k and above, but they do have this level of complexity. So some people who came on my masterclasses in Cornwall last year have got small boutique consultancies, and they might be scoring 15 or 20 or 25k deals, but they're taking 3 to 6 months to develop and close and bring in and have the same level of complexity as the sort of bigger deals. So the important thing is around the complexity, not necessarily the size. So it's the complexity where I help more than the size. So it takes more than 3 months to find, develop and close. In my worst case scenario, when I sold a big deal into London Underground in 2003, £17 million deal, it took 3 years from inception to close. Yeah, and I had to lobby 39 people. So that's how complicated it can get. The people that you need to influence is, we have this thing called a decision-making unit. In the client side, there's going to be a bunch of people. It's usually more than 3 or 4. And they've got to come to consensus to vote for you. So if I leave you with one message today, when you're thinking about whether or not you're in good shape to win this next piece of business, imagine you're the procurement officer in a client company that you're selling into, and they're writing a piece of paper, they're writing down a recommendation. So if I might take you guys here, Protea, I'm the procurement officer and I'm your client, and I'm writing down the reason we're going to buy from Protea today is because. Now, if you can finish that sentence off in terms of a value proposition, i.e. what's the quantitative payback, what's the qualitative payback, and what's the differentiation, those 3 things, you're in good shape. If you can't answer that question, then your client's unlikely to be able to answer the question anyway. So very, very simple thing. I don't think we'll go on a lot of sales training courses in order to get benefit from that one, do we? Just force yourself to write the answer to that question. In terms of legals, terms and conditions are almost definitely going to be complicated in a complex deal. One of the times that I've run a sales campaign and you get to the end of the order, you've got a letter of intent, blah, 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 and then the client says, yeah, but I don't read these terms and conditions. And you're into another sales cycle. You need to get those things cleared before you get to the point where you get to the contract. So develop the answers to those problems in parallel, not in serial. And then how do you get this thing closed? And understanding what the client's buying process is and how they put a purchase order through their organisation is something that is incumbent upon you to understand. And you have to ask the question. You have to be cheeky enough to ask the question. Explain to me, Mr. Customer, just for our understanding, so that we can supply you on time to budget. If you intend to give us the order, can you just walk me through what has to happen in your organisation for us to get this PO? So what do we have to consider? We're not going to consider all these things today, as I said, we're going to consider one piece of it. Well, what do we have to consider? We have to consider how do you find these deals? Hopefully you've got some marketing campaigns going, or you've got some personal networks that you're leveraging to get some of these. Once we have, how do we qualify whether we should spend the money bidding? Now, this is the first time this morning I'm using the word qualify. So kind of, having qualified, and we do decide to go forward, how do we differentiate ourselves? So we have this concept of the unique selling proposition. Yeah? Because you might have a good quantitative payback for the client in terms of solution and a qualitative answer to their requirement. But unless you're different from the competition, guess where the deal's going to go? Because all else being equal, the deal will come to those people who have got some significant difference, whether it be relationship, or track record, enterprise, whatever it might be. If we get selected as a preferred vendor, how do we negotiate favourable conditions and profitable deal? I've just mentioned terms and conditions. I'm not going to mention that again because we haven't got time to look at that today, but that's another key and big aspect of selling. And once we've won something, how do we keep it, leverage it for the leads, and expand our footprint with the client, so get more market share. Yeah? I've mentioned this before, we'll look at qualification in a second. So in the context of this complexity, then F.I.C.K.L.E is what I just mentioned before, finding, investigating, closing, keeping leveraging. The key challenge is knowing where to look for leads. So marketing is a key function. I was talking to Stephen before, we're both in charge of seeking marketing. If you're not embracing marketing as a professional aspect to your business, and I recommend you do, and sales is really a function of marketing. It's part of marketing. It's the overall way that you represent yourself to the world. And there are multiple ways in which you should be able to communicate your sales, your capabilities, your presence, such that you attract business towards you, whether it's through a website or telephone calls or whatever. So this pull, this attraction-based marketing concept. But there's also selling, which is going out to the client base and actually talking to people about their needs and developing business. We'll look at qualification in depth at the moment. We need to think about, once we've developed and qualified something, developing compelling USPs. Yeah? So the word compelling is used deliberately because very often, if you were to ask a client on a scale of 0 to 10, are they going to do something? Very often there's an option to do nothing. It needs to be scored at 8, 9 or 10. So Mr. Client, on a score of 0 to 10, are you really going to do something about this in the time scale that you said? And get them to explain why. And it has to be a compelling reason, doesn't it? Because otherwise, because we don't buy things, nobody invests money to get some sort of return without it being compelling. So if the fire alarm went off now, we'd be compelled to leave the room. Yeah? So at least, things need to be compelling rather than just maybe. The other aspect of professionalism and winning business is being writing convincing proposals and presentations. Obviously, how you represent yourself in a proposal to a client or in a presentation is fundamentally you're signaling the quality of your organisation to your client base. So you need to spend time and effort understanding that as well and making sure that that's top notch. Because you could do a lot of work and then blow it on a presentation. And then very often as entrepreneurs, we have to partner with other organisations. So you might have to partner with a lawyer, solicitor, an accountant, somebody, an advisor, making sure that their engagement and input is of top quality is also crucial to you. And then finally we've got the whole aspect of negotiating and closing a deal. So let's look at qualification then. So this is a minimum set of criteria for me, as far as I'm concerned. These are the questions you need to ask yourself. I don't mind if you write this down, and don't buy the book. Well, let's have a look at these things. Solution. So, as was said here, does it exactly meet the client's needs? So if you've got an RFP, a request for proposal, or an invitation to tender in front of you, and you do a match between what the client's needs are and what you're capable of offering, unless there's a greater than 85% fit, unless you've got some other way of getting around the issues that of not fitting, then I would put an alarm bell. So each one of these I'd like you to score on a 0 to 10 basis. So if you're scoring less than 8 for solution fit against what the client's asking for, that's a yellow light going on. Yeah? Give me a bit of this. Competition. If you've got really, really strong competition, somebody who's been in there a long time, has got a great relationship and a great track record, and you haven't got something that's mind-blowingly, compellingly different, what do you think your chances are of winning? Really low. Because the client doesn't want to upset that relationship that they've got with their existing supplier. Yeah? If there's a lot of competition, and they want to do something new, and they're looking for new people, and they've told you that, and you've looked at that in white eyes, and you've said that, and you believe them, then fine. But, you know, be wary of competition. And, you know, the top class salespeople in the world, by the way, are completely ruthless with this. So they apply this methodology, and they put more RFPs and ITTs in the bin than they run with. Because one of the things about salespeople, if you've got any employee or you are one yourself, is by definition, they have to be optimistic people. Yeah? They have to be optimistic people to keep going, to keep staying motivated. But sometimes that optimism can overrule the head aspect that you need to apply here on these metrics. Originality. So on a score of 0 to 10, what's your differentiation? Can you answer the question, the reason they're going to come to Protea this week is because? Timescale, I think the gentleman in the blue shirt there mentioned timescale. How long is this sales cycle going to take? You know, is it combined with bid budget? You know, do you really, for the size of the deal and the anticipated profit that you might get out of it, are you prepared to engage in this sales cycle for this length of time? Because it's going to eat up resources and take up time. Yeah? So you've got a cost of sale that's running away all the time. Size, is it, again, it's linked to time, so is it worth it, and is it deliverable? Yeah? From the time scale, can you turn around a quote in that time scale? Money, you mentioned money this morning, so I think Stephen mentioned, you know, trying to sell into the government sector. Do they have the budget? If they have the budget, who owns it? Who's assigned it? There needs to be names against these things. There's usually going to be, in a bigger deal, an executive sponsor. And if you're going to spend your time, your money, you've been into this business, you've got a right to ask who is that individual, and can you speak to them, just to check that they have got a budget and they are going to spend it this year. And in terms of your proposition to the client, are you able to articulate the return on investment for what you're offering? Can you see a payback? Can you articulate a payback the client will get from this offering in quantity terms or quality terms, or preferably both? Do they need it? As we've said before, you know, very often organisations will come out just to sense the marketplace, and you need to understand what business benefit the client's trying to achieve in order to measure the amount, you know, the degree of compellingness that you will bring with. So on a scale of 0 to 10, are you going to really move on this project or not, and why? And you have to be convinced yourself. You're going to have to be able to see and understand that, yeah, if I was that business and I had that opportunity, I'd be spending money doing that because it's almost a no-brainer. If it's a nice to have, you've got to go back to the question. You know, there's a technique in sales called take away the solution. And it's worth trying now and again. It takes courage, because you think to yourself, well, this is an opportunity and they don't come along this often and blah, 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 we still have a good chance. But if you actually take the solution away and say, look, sorry, thank you for the opportunity to bid, but we don't think, you know, we're that good of a fit for you guys, unless you tell us otherwise, then, you know, if you are in good shape, the client will come back and say, no, 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 we'd like you to bid because you've done the market research, you're in the top 2. You know, we're not going to tell you you're going to win because there's a competition, but you know, we'd really like you to bid, seriously. Yeah.
A less risky strategy than that would be to open up and profile the customer accordingly and ask them directly, what is it about our product that most interests you? And let them tell you that, because they're not going to argue with themselves.
Exactly that. That's what I'm recommending. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm recommending. So, you know, ask that hard question. What is it about us that you like so much? Yeah. You have to have that information back that encourages you to say, well, I'll continue to spend this bid on. Fantastic. Risk. Very often, risk is an overlooked thing, but you know, if you're selling high-value equipment, stuff can go wrong. So, is there risk in you selling this product to these people? Could something backfire on you here that's not covered by terms and conditions or insurance? So, do some risk analysis in terms of depends on the degree and complexity of the deal and the kind of things you offer. But you know, risk analysis can go on forever, can't it? But at least make sure that all the risks that are inherent that you've got some kind of mitigation against it. Yeah? And you know, in IT services projects, obviously, what people do is you know, when you put together an estimate, you've got contingency in there, what other discounts. Because if you're doing a services project as opposed to a fixed product, very often, like building this hotel maybe, you know, you can make an estimate of what it's going to be like to dig out the foundations and all this kind of stuff, but all of a sudden if you find, you know, you've got Roman ruins underneath and you've got to divert and you've got to do this and you've got to do that, you can put that in the original estimate and you've got to have a contingency to cover those scenarios. Relationships. For me, having spent 30 years selling, the absolute key thing about sales is relationships. People buy from the people they trust the most. I know it's a hackneyed phrase, but it's absolutely true. And you need to get and develop a level of relationship with your clients such that in their mind, you know, the default is if they've got a problem, which is in the sphere of capability of your services or products, the first person they pick up the phone to is you, and that's the competition. And that's the degree of relationship you're trying to get. Or even better, they will refer you to other opportunities or provide testimonials for you or whatever. So, you know, relationships, that is the art of world-class account management. When you see people put together account plans to develop more business, it's all about understanding, A, I've got a good relationship here, now where do I go in this account to develop more relationships and make it stronger and stronger and stronger. Finally, track record. This is a very, very important one because it's very intrinsically linked with relationships, because if you've got a very good track record with a client, then they will come back to you and there will be less of this go through the mill and less of the hard negotiation, and there will be more trust in that relationship, and therefore there's going to be more compromise. And it's more likely to be a longer lasting, more profitable relationship because you've got a good track record with them. You've got a trusting relationship. The opposite, obviously, is if you do sell something to somebody, product or service, and it goes wrong, you've got one opportunity to put it right. My recommendation is you go hell for leather to put it right, because if you want to keep that client, you need to have a happy client. You need to turn that opportunity around, make it good, so that client's happy, and also be able to leverage that relationship with them. This is a very simplistic diagram of what anybody who is in the sales profession or has had any experience of it is called the sales funnel. So, you know, on the left-hand side, we've got an organisation who is generating leads and filling the hopper full of opportunities. They're proposing and they're trying to close, and they're winning 50% of the business. So they're winning 1 in 2 deals. Now, if you think just, you know, of your bid cost per opportunity in your businesses now, and you compare it to somebody on the right-hand side who's only winning 1 in 10, yeah, what's the cost of the difference in that performance over a year? So think about the number of bids you do in 1 year. Now think about the number that you win. Now think about the cost to you of the ones that you didn't win. And if you can improve that ratio from whatever it is by a certain percentage to wherever you want it to be, that's the payback for getting this right. I hope you enjoyed it. If I can help in the future, obviously, I'm a businessman. You've got my cards. If you haven't got a card, grab one off the table. And I look forward to the opportunity to meet you again in the future.